Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just waiting for a couple more people to join, and then we'll get started. You want to have your reading questions that we um, did in class yesterday, or that I gave you yesterday. You want to have those out, opened up on your computer. Um, all right. Here we go. All right. So the first thing I want to do today is take a look at a primary source, and this is what's known as the Roosevelt Corollary. So I'm curious, Lucy, I can see you. Can you see this primary source on the screen? All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna read this together and then try to decipher what Roosevelt was saying here, what maybe his main point was. And we might get a few stragglers to enter into class also, which will be good. All right, so the Roosevelt Corollary. In 1904, the government of the Dominican Republic went bankrupt, and Theodore Roosevelt feared that Germany and other nations might intervene forcibly to collect their debts. In response, Roosevelt issued the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine as part of a 1904 message to Congress. Roosevelt and later U.S. presidents cited the corollary to justify U.S. intervention in the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Nicaragua, Mexico, and Haiti. As you read, think about how this policy impacted American relations with the nations of the Western Hemisphere. Also consider how this policy might be seen as an extension of the Monroe Doctrine. So this was part of the speech that Roosevelt gave to Congress. And I quote, "It is not true that the United States feels any land hunger or entertains any projects as regards the other nations of the Western Hemisphere, save such as are for their welfare, and that this country desires is to see the neighboring, all that this country desires, to see the neighboring countries stable, orderly, and prosperous. If a nation shows that it knows how to act with reasonable efficiency and decency in social and political matters, if it keeps order and pays its obligations, it need fear no interference from the United States. Chronic wrongdoing, however, may ultimately require intervention by some civilized nation. And in the Western Hemisphere, the adherence of the United States to the Monroe Doctrine may force the United States, however reluctantly, to the exercise of an international police power." June 6, 1904. Document B, from Teddy Roosevelt also. "I have always been fond of the West African proverb, speak softly and carry a big stick, you will go far." So oftentimes this is mocked by newspaper writers as the big stick policy and the Roosevelt Corollary. So what do we gain from, what do we think the main message that Roosevelt is trying to say to other countries in the Western Hemisphere? Katya, what do you think?
It's like the United States responsibility to interfere with nations in the Western Hemisphere, not like people in Europe.
Good. That's one important part. Good. What else, Brooke?
They're saying that they're willing to help bring them together, but they have to follow their ways, and that if they are doing wrongdoing, that intervention is going to happen.
Correct. Good. Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, the United States is telling other countries not to take advantage of the economic or just like the state of different countries, especially in the Caribbean. And if they see any other Western state, then they're going to have to enforce some of their own political or police power.
Okay. Lily?
I actually had a question about this.
Yeah.
Is this kind of like social Darwinism where they feel like
You- I agree with you on that. Is I see undertones of social Darwinism and this whole blessings of civilization thing in this. So it's like tongue in cheek, but he says all that this country desires to see the neighboring country stable, orderly, and prosperous. And if a nation shows that it knows how to act with reasonable efficiency and decency in social and political matters, I mean, why is it the United States' responsibility to determine if a country is acting orderly, the country is acting with efficiency, decency, pays its obligations? I mean, why does the United States make sure that that's happening to neighboring countries? Brooke?
Is it because since they're like closer to them, they're trying to make sure that they don't pose a threat to them?
That's definitely one reason. And that's a typical reason that's used in American history for why it's okay for us to be very imperialistic. Hannah, what were you going to say?
Is it to keep like their markets, like the economic benefit of being next to them so they can keep selling their stuff so they don't have like an economic slump?
Aha. So the old debate there, Brooke and Hannah, the two-sided head of the United States. On the one hand, oh, we're out here to spread our technology and superior way of life to everybody and protect them, right? That sounds a great thing. But then on the other hand, we're also here to tell them exactly how they have to live and how they should run their economy so that we can profit as much as we can off of their resources and their ability to provide resources to continue to grow our markets. So which one sounds more influential? Lucille Hittel.
Probably the economic one. Like I remember also reading that the United States literally built a canal on, I forget whose land it was, but they helped them out in a war, and then right after that all they basically did was like make them sign a treaty and be like, we're going to just take your land to build a huge canal that will help us get our resources.
Yeah, that's the Panama Canal. If you can read two sides of the perspective. If you read it from American economics perspective, it is a glorious invention that allowed for the United States to move navies and to move goods back and forth without having to have to sail around South America. If you look at it from the perspective of the Panamanians, they were aided in a forced civil war against Guatemala. And then after they were aided in this civil war, they just conveniently gave the canal for 75 years to the United States. And guess who built the canal? Sure, there were a handful of Americans there, engineers, smart people, but the people who built the canal, the hard labor in the rainforests, bug-ridden area were the natives that were digging out this canal, not middle-class white people from the US. Okay, if I had to just shoot straight with you. So good. It seems like you are understanding the a little bit of the hypocrisy. I'm not a US history teacher, but I don't want to turn a blind eye to this. I think it's something that's important for students to realize, so that they can make their own informed decisions about how they want to vote in the future and how history impacts what's going on right now. We still have troops in Afghanistan. We still have troops in Iraq. We still have the most military bases of any country around the world by far. Our defense spending is is our defense spending is 10 times more than the 10 largest countries next to us are, like, close to our size, 10 times more. So again, I'm not an anti-American, I'm not anti-jingoist. I don't, I'm just saying that's a fact. I like my freedom. I like my independence. I like that. I feel like I can come to work safe, or I used to feel that way until COVID hit. But, I like those civil liberties, but we also pay for them and do things to get them. Okay, I'll stop. I'll get off my rant. And here's what I'm proposing. So, as a group, we're just going to kind of talk through these questions, and this is going to almost be kind of like a group quiz. And so I noticed I only had about 32 people in 2 classes upload the questions. So that means a lot of people didn't do them or didn't turn them in or are losing it. And I understand that. This is kind of that time in the semester where it tends to happen. But how this is going to work is, if you participate early, you won't be able to participate later. And then as a class, we have to get through all of these questions. So some of you who like to participate more than others, you may know who you are. You might want to save your voice for the middle of the road or the end of the road. Like in a relay race, maybe you want to be the closer, or maybe if you could tag someone in at the end of a marathon who's got fresh legs, maybe you want to be that person. It just depends. Use your own strategy, but ultimately we've got 26 people on here, and I think we've got about 16 questions to look at, which would mean that there'll be 10 of you that won't have to speak, but there'll be 16 of you that do. So we'll play it that way. I will mark down those of you who speak. If we get through this as a group and everybody, and we're able to get through all 16 questions, then everybody gets their participation points. Okay. I have been accosted again. I have to put my mask on. This is what I talked about, American freedoms, being questioned here by a coworker who is super spreading COVID right now in my room by myself. So, all right. Here we go. All right. So what was the outcome of the Mexican-American War, and how did a loss to America promote nationalism? So we have Lily ZS.
Lily!
For this one, I said the outcome of the Mexican-American War was America got control of Mexico and forced them to sign the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and it promoted nationalism because it made Mexican people feel heroic, like going into battle, and it made them want to confront the internal problems in their government.
Good.
Good job, Lily.
You got the idea here that the United States invaded Mexico and took approximately 55% of Mexico from them and turned it into the United States. Now, one thing important to understand here is that was only 5% of Mexico's population. Okay. But I think the bigger thing to think about is that it makes up places like California today, which happen to be very populous places in the U.S. and have helped the United States prosper economically, which could be parts of Mexico. So Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is one of the more famous ones in the sense that, again, Mexico was halved and the United States gained 1/3 of their land. That makes up the United States, and it's part of this whole idea of manifest destiny.
What about Texas?
Texas gained its independence in 1836. You need to go back and watch the movie Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone.
We should give Texas back.
Why?
Nobody likes Texas.
he's being mean against Texans. My whole family lives there. I'm very upset.
Oh, and there. Cool.
Ethan, what's up?
Eat.
Ethan, you want to answer the next question? All right. Why did Benito Juarez's La Reforma fail in Mexico? Door shut, please. Gracias. Go ahead, Ethan.
He put it in the chat.
Oh, he put it in the chat for us. Benito Juarez's La Reforma failed in Mexico because the landowners and speculators bought up much of lands and caused peasants and Native Americans to unjustly lose much of their land. That is about exactly right. So, the La Reforma was to get rid of the church power and the power of the army and to put it in the hands of the people. But what happened was the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. Typically, that's not going to be a good situation. All right. Good job, Ethan. You are good. And let's go with why did France become involved in Mexico's political problems? What was the outcome there? That's a weird one. Katya, you want to jump in? You got it.
So there's like a civil war between liberals and conservatives in Mexico, and when the conservatives were losing, they called in Napoleon III, and then the French took over Mexico, and they got Maximilian to be the emperor.
So they convinced the Habsburg to put in power. Shocking, right? Habsburgs love power. Yeah, and who ended up? What ended up happening in the long run?
He got assassinated he got executed when French troops pulled out of Mexico.
Yeah, and Benito Juarez came back to power. So the same person who the French removed came back and basically put Maximilian under a firing squad, and it would be his general Porfirio Diaz who would rule, I believe, for like 35 years after that, in basically a dictatorship. Yeah, all the way till 1910. All right, good. That's Napoleon III. So that's, if you want to believe it or not, they brought Napoleon's family back in power in France. Just like a FYI, like seriously, that's some messed up European politics right there. All right, let's go number 4. Why did Domingo Sarmiento represent liberal progress in Argentina? I'm looking for a hand of the raising. All right, Mushi, take it.
I said that Domingo Sarmiento represented liberal progress in Argentina by increasing international trade and launching internal reforms in education and transportation.
All right, so reform in education, transportation, political stability, economic reform. Wanted to copy the European ways. This would mean that Argentina had a lot of imports from like our people that immigrated into Argentina, and this would put their economy on a path to, one, rely on European investment, but 2, have a chance to develop. And that's why you see it as a more developed country today. All right. What exports made Argentina's economy prosperous? Ashton, you still have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I said exports of hides and salted meats increased, and that made that made Argentina's economy prosperous.
Yeah, I had beefs, hides, and wool. If you've ever, I don't know, I've been to Brazil, but not Argentina before. My buddy's been to Argentina. Their beef is it's like on another level of deliciousness. So if you ever get a chance to try their cuts of steak, they're quite tasty. Hannah, what were you gonna add? Or did you answer a question?
Yeah, I want to do the next one.
Okay. All right. So, 30 years after independence, foreign trade was booming in Argentina. So that put them on the world map. All right, let's go to 6, Brazil. And Hannah Hiddle, you are next.
So I said Brazil's loose immigration laws allowed more people that were attracted to the government and work on coffee estates because that was Brazil's cash crop at the time. And this weakened the dependency on slaves in Brazil because of how people were more willing and were coming for work on their own. And also the abolition movement was gaining momentum. And so this eventually led to the abolition of slavery in 1888.
Perfect. 1888. Yep. And even though they imported 1.5 million slaves in their last 50 years, they had massive immigration from Europe. And so that's one of the reasons why I told you this earlier, that Brazil is one of the most mixed cultures I've certainly ever seen before. All right, let's go to 7 then. How did monarchy in Brazil eventually end in 1889? Okay, Brooke.
So the monarchy in Brazil ended due to military taking part in politics, along with the ideas of positivism and the development of the Republic Party. So when the military deposed the emperor, the nation had become a Republic Party influenced by positivism and the Republic Party also too.
Okay, you keep throwing out this word positivism. What does that mean? Brooke.
It's the idea that oh, I was trying to remember it.
Take a deep breath. You're okay.
Hold on. Can I look in my notes from my
Sure.
reading? Okay, hold on. I need to pull them up. It's the French philosophy based on observation and scientific approach to the problems of society, and it was adopted by many Latin American liberals in the aftermath of independence.
So it's the idea that you can apply science and the Enlightenment to fix problems, that change is actually possible. Good. Okay, let's go down to D, number 8 here. Explain how women gained very few rights, even though many fought for independence in Latin American countries. Lucy McJunkins.
So to sum up what I said with this, I basically just mentioned how like women in Latin America fought for and participated in lots of independence movements, and they hoped that along with gaining independence that maybe they would gain more rights. But however, that didn't happen. And after they gained independence, there were barely any changes in women's rights. Like they still couldn't vote, have any political job and more stuff. And they were still expected to be labeled as and used as a wife and a mother.
Bingo. Yep. So the liberal movements weren't as liberal as they had expected. It's similar to the American Revolution, the French Revolution, just later on. Good. All right, 9. Identify how old Spanish caste system still affected Latin American social barriers. Samuel.
What I said was that since they had like a social system, how some people were above others, I guess it kind of affected the way some of them interacted with each other.
Mm-hmm. And so even though that the social caste system was outlawed, there still was an attitude of racial superiority that remained there, and kind of like calling someone an Indian was an insult. And you can't get rid of a caste system. It takes generations upon generations to do that. Good, Samuel. Thank you. Let's go to 10. From the Great Boom, give 3 examples of industrialized demands from Latin America. Jackson.
Some of the industrial demands in Latin America were raw materials, foodstuff, and specialized
All right. So raw materials, foods, and tropical crops. Think about that. What we talked about the other day. All of those are totally dependent on supply and demand. And so if the demand goes down, that hurts the entire economy. So it's not the most stable way of producing things. Okay, good. Why was export-led expansion dangerous for Latin America? Well, Lily Dole, just repeat what I just said.
Well, yeah, that, and also it caused rivalries between the countries in Latin America.
Yeah. And it was foreigners, people outside of Latin America in general, that determined the price of their goods, not them. So that's going to be an issue. All right. 12. Why was foreign investment both good and bad for Latin American countries? We've got about 12 people, I think, left in the pool. So you got to jump in. Foreign investment, how was it good, but also bad for Latin American countries? All right. E-Ray, go ahead.
I said that foreign investment was good because it fueled Latin Americans with capital and services, but it was bad because it set constraints on Latin American politics.
Yeah. Yep. So it's kind of the whole parent-child relationship. Even though they had independence, they still were treated like children in terms of making political decisions for themselves. Good. All right. 13. What led to the Mexican Revolution of 1910? This is where we need assists from some people that haven't spoken yet. Let's go. Come on, somebody out there, take one for the team. Let's go. See a lot of people on the Zoom haven't spoken yet. Kaylee.
They wanted an electoral like reform because they didn't like the leaders that were leading the government.
Yeah, they had Porfirio Diaz as a dictator for 35 years. That's a little more than a two-term presidency. So getting rid of the dictator, and basically the problem for Mexico is they had to have farmers come together with urban workers, with cowboys, and they had to get everybody on the same page. Yeah, Jasmine, you're correct, but a little late. Yeah. All right. So 14. How did the United States influence Caribbean independence? Lucille.
I said the United States influenced the Caribbean independence by becoming a major market for the Cuban sugar that was like their cash crop there. And I said they also fought off the Spanish for the Caribbean, and the United
We lost the second half of your answer there.
Did I cut out?
Yes.
Do you want me to just re-say my answer?
Sure.
So the United States like influenced their independence by like buying their Cuban sugar, and then also they helped fought off the Spanish for the Caribbean, and then the United States also backed up their like riots and movements for independence, and then they signed a treaty with them that granted the United States land over the Caribbean.
Yeah. So there's not like aiding in civil wars to then get what you want out of it. So in particular, the Spanish American War, the Spanish were brutally treating the Cubans, even putting them in concentration camps. And so in return, the Spanish, the United States used that as a means. If you've ever heard of the blowing up of the USS Maine, which was in the Havana Harbor. But some people will say the United States blew it up on purpose to get involved in Cuba. Other people will say that, they somehow, a Spanish revolutionary sparked the gunpowder in the boat. But either way, that led to the United States declaring war on Spain, and that led to the United States taking Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines in the year 1898. Okay, so that's quite a bit of land. Yeah, blame the Maine on Spain. Yep, something like that. And I forget the general's name who was butchering people, just mercilessly treating the Cubans, and the American newspapers got wind of it, and there was quite a bit of sensationalism at this time as well. But this is where the United States then had to try to figure out what to do with the Philippines, and that became a bit of a mess because the Filipinos didn't want to be ruled by the U.S. unless they were in the urban areas. All right, 15. What were the circumstances behind the U.S. building a canal in Central America? Sam Barker, you got it.
The U.S. wanted to show Central America how good their engineering was.
All right, that's good. Somebody else, that's part of it. Someone else helped build on that. What else happened? What else happened here? We got one more person to help us out. I got it in the chat function, I think. Well, yes, economically, we definitely wanted to have a means to not have to sail around the entire coast of South America. But the other circumstances, and I did say this already in class, but really, Colombia wouldn't allow the U.S. to build on their property. So the United States gave weapons and money to the Panamanians to wage war against Colombia, and then that allowed for the U.S. to build a canal, and then they got a 75-year lease on it, and they used Panamanian labor with American engineers and American money to build a canal. And to this day, the canal is open, but the United States still has quite a bit of control on who goes in and out of it.
Of where?
The Panama Canal.
Oh man, that thing's tight. You ever been there? The changes, they like raise and lower the sea level.
Do you have your mask on? This guy.
See, no, don't even try to play that game, Mr.
All right. Hey, class, I'm proud of you for figuring out a way to get that done. I would make a $10 bet that next period won't be able to do it, unfortunately. I'm going to I'm going to share here real quick for you. This is for tomorrow, which is the last day of the semester. And then Monday we'll be reviewing for your final exam. And so new share, we're going over here, and he dropped a 6-pound weight on his foot and he's crying. Stop. Okay, so I flipped it from last week. If you were in the inner circle last week, you're in the outer. If you were in the outer last week, you're in the inner. Make sure you look at the names. I don't know if I'll have time to post this on Canvas or not. So everyone have a good look on it. Okay. Make sure then if you're in the outer circle, make sure you prepare your questions. There's a horde of missing assignments out there from this week. If you turn in anything from here on out, I'm not going to take points off of it, but get it, send it to me as a Canvas message, please. Okay. All right. Thanks for your participation, everybody. Be good. Get outside, 55, 57 degrees. I got a little suntan. You see me? I got that little nice glow on the forehead today. Yeah. So it's pretty solid. So anyways, all right. We'll talk to you later. Bye. What'd you say?